This lesson will talk about higher order thinking in the classroom and discuss how you can change your behavior and answer the question, what is your responsibility? After today's lesson, you should be able to compare higher order thinking and lower order thinking and discuss examples with a small group. So here's the deal. On Mondays, when you guys get to go home, your teachers stay and do different types of professional development to learn about good teaching and learning. The things that we expect of you and talk about with that good teaching and learning are three things. For you to create your own knowledge, which means you're taking ownership and really actively engaged in your thinking. You're going to communicate your understanding to other people, whether you are talking to a peer or writing a paper or answering a question from the teacher. You're really thinking and talking about your academics. And finally, we want you to apply your learning to the real world. Start thinking like professionals. What do mathematicians do? Why does a scientist need to know what you know? How does a real writer in the real world use these particular skills? So every day you should be creating, communicating, and applying your learning beyond the classroom. So one of the most important things with creating your own learning and communicating about it is thinking about the difference between hot and lot. Hot is higher order thinking. Lot is lower order thinking. Really, your brain progresses through different levels or different types of thinking throughout the day, depending on what you're asked to do. Lower order thinking are easier types of skills. They might have one right answer. It usually takes a little bit less time to do lower order thinking skills. So you might just have to remember some facts, recall what you read, receive or recite something that you already learned, maybe define a vocabulary word or know information about a particular person. In math class, maybe you have to apply a rule or an algorithm. In contrast, higher order thinking is going to make your brain hurt. It is a little bit more difficult, takes a little bit longer. There might be more than one right answer to it. It's more complicated, more complex thinking. Now, your teachers are going to ask you to do a variety of thinking throughout each day. Your lower order thinking skills are absolutely necessary and a good solid basis of knowledge that you need in order to do higher order thinking. You have to remember things before you can analyze them. So your teachers are doing a great job and they need your help in the classroom. That's where this comes in. This card sort is going to be an activity where you really dig in to understanding the difference between hot and lot. After this card sort, then you'll talk about what your responsibility is in the classroom now that you know that different types of thinking require different behaviors from you. Your basic option when you get the cards from your teacher is going to be to divide them into two groups, either higher order or lower order. But your more advanced option is to separate them into the 6 particular categories. Now it helps to spread them out from easiest to most difficult, and then place the questions underneath what type of thinking that question is asking you to do. This should be a great group discussion, and be prepared to justify your choices as your teachers come around and ask you maybe why you put that in a place that you did. So for example, you see the words at the top are the types of thinking verbs that we've already talked about. Remember, understand, and apply. Those are on the left-hand side here and are the more lower order thinking skills. Still very important to know and understand, but not as complex as the analyze, evaluate, and create on the right-hand side. You have cards, and what your group is going to do is decide what kind of thinking is being asked there. Again, you do not have to actually answer the question, so I'm not asking for you to answer what is one cause of the Revolutionary War. There's lots of ways that you could, approach that, but what is the type of thinking that that question is asking you to do? That would be an understand thing. Your teacher has probably had you read something or take notes on something or given a lecture about causes of the Revolutionary War. If you're just asked to list one of those, you can put that under the understand category. Similarly, if you were asked to construct a tower 1 foot tall using only 4 blocks, That is a creation activity. You're having to problem solve. Maybe one group does it in a different way than another group does. You have to problem solve your way through that. Okay, you have 5 minutes to get this activity done. Teacher, go ahead and pause the video here. Now that you've participated in that card sort, you've seen the different types of thinking and communicating that higher order thinking has you do. Now that you know these expectations, I just wanted to remind you of your role in the classroom. Basically, when you are asked to do higher order things, you have to participate. All students need to be learning the content and the skills. Ultimately, you are responsible for yourself. You need to take ownership of your own learning. In most groups of students, there are two different kinds of kids. The ones who know the right answer right away and are totally willing to share that answer and do the thinking for all the other people. And then there's the ones who sit back and let that person do all the work. Both individuals need to find a common ground of collaboration. Everyone needs to show the teachers what you know. Everyone needs to be participating and doing the hard thinking that your teachers are asking you to do, because ultimately you are responsible for your own learning. Now, your responsibility when a higher order question is asked or when a task is posed in front of you, much like this card sort, you're going to pay attention, think, take risks, and then listen. So first you're going to listen for hot clue verbs, any of the verbs that you saw on that sheet. These might be in your learning targets, they might be in the directions. If a teacher asks a higher order question, a lot of times they will give a long pause or wait time for you to think really carefully about that question. When you hear that pause in the classroom, that is the clue for your brain to start thinking. When you're thinking about a question or a task that requires higher order skills, you're going to use your access to the lower order thinking skills and your academic knowledge. Think back to the connections that you've made in class before, the vocabulary that you've learned, things that you've read, understood, remembered, and use those lower order skills in order to think how you might answer that higher order question. Next, you need to take risks. If you access your lower order thinking skills and you're not quite sure if you're right, try. It's okay to be wrong because you're trying. Your teachers would rather you try and be wrong than they would have you sit there and do nothing. Attempt, take risks, make mistakes. But as long as you're thinking and paying attention, your teachers will appreciate your effort. And then finally, listen. You might have one answer to a higher order question, and someone else might have a completely different answer. Both of you are going to benefit from listening to other people's ideas. Someone else's ideas will help you to understand the content better. So especially when you're asked to do something higher order, you need to really listen and pay attention, think hard, take that risk, and then listen again. Now finally, an adult might come into the classroom and ask you, what are you learning today? Many times we are looking for examples of good teaching and learning that you're, once again, creating your knowledge, communicating your understanding, or applying those skills. When you are asked, what are you learning today? A really great response starts out, today I am learning about blank. If you can add a because statement on the end of that, it's even better. So for example, maybe you're in science class. If someone asks you, what are you learning today? Don't just look at them and say, science. You could say, today I am learning about patterns in weather. I'm learning about this because scientists use patterns to predict things. Your teachers are working really hard to set up great learning targets and higher order thinking skills for you to get deeper understanding of the content and skills. Your job is to pay attention and engage and change your behavior just a little bit when you're asked to do something higher order. Now, before we're done, I want you to turn to a partner next to you and summarize the difference between higher order thinking, hot, and lower order thinking, lot. And then summarize what is your responsibility in the classroom.